What's up, everybody? I am getting ready to load something up to take down to surprise Greg and Michael with. We are getting ready to go out of town for the Florida truck meet race coming up next weekend, and I put something together that I'm pretty sure that we're going to need, and so I'm about to load it up in the bed of the truck here, make the quick little drive down to Bowling Green, and surprise these guys. So what you saw there was a spare transmission that I went ahead and put together. At the beginning of this deal, we had discussed doing a spare transmission. We knew that we were going to need it. Originally, I should say, the plan was that we were going to test the truck locally a few times before we actually took it to events. But as most race stuff goes, things get pushed back, timelines get stretched out, and the next thing we know, we're staring at doing our initial testing Wednesday before the Florida race. So anytime you're going to haul that far away from home with a brand new build, you want to try to be as prepared as possible. So I just couldn't see it making any sense to drive 13 hours without having a spare transmission. So went ahead and surprised those guys with a spare. Greg and Michael were super thankful of that. And turns out a little later in here, we were going to need it. So we get to the track on Wednesday. It was a private test rental. Those guys rented the track, which is great. Anytime that you have the ability to rent the track, it allows you to make lots of progress very quickly. You're able to basically go up there, and if the truck doesn't go down, you can back up, change some things, let it cool down, pull it right back up into the beams and try again. So stuff that you might get 3 or 4 passes in testing on normal testing, you can make 8 or 9 pretty easily on a private rental. So essentially that's what we did. We just tested the crap out of the truck all day Wednesday. We started off not trying to go more than 60 feet with it. Once we got it to go 60 feet, we would run it to the 1-2 shift. Basically just gathering data. It's a brand new Motec system in the truck, so all of that stuff has to be programmed. You have to program the logic of when it shifts, the timing, everything, lockup, all this stuff. And so on a brand new build, I like to iron one out with no lockup. So we pretty much were not going to run lockup until we got the truck going down the racetrack more than once, and felt okay, it was time to bring lockup in when the data shows us though. If you guys are really into the suspension stuff and the 4x4 stuff and you've been following me for a while, then you've probably seen some of my older videos about tires and shocks and springs and such. And you might know that I am a fan of a small tire on a 4x4. When I say small tire, I'm talking a 28-10-5 or a 29-5, 10-5 non-W. This truck has 29.5, 11.5 Ws, so quite a big tire. Not a fan of a big tire because it's hard to control the sidewall on it. Well, OSW down in Florida is known for having really good prep. They radial prep that place a lot. When you have a really good racetrack, it's really hard to dumb it down. So we were going up there for a Wednesday test and tune with excellent prep. Honestly, better prep than what was on race day. And so when you have a big tire, you're trying to keep it round, you're on really good prep, brand new truck, suspension setup that's not ironed out yet, you're gonna struggle with it. And so we struggled with controlling the tire quite a few times early on in testing. We shook the truck pretty hard a couple times during testing, just from the tire distortion. But eventually we did get some pretty decent 60 foots, especially given the weight of the truck, somewhere north of 6,200 pounds. We were able to go a 140 60 foot, so a 140 was our best. And then we had a slew of 142 and 143s. So we concluded Wednesday's test session with a best of a 580 because we weren't running it to the stripe yet. We were basically just getting it dialed in, just getting it figured out. And then we had something to build off on for Thursday's testing. testing is ODSS testing, so we're not going to get as many runs in on a test session where you've got 15 other people coming up, and so that's why we worked pretty hard trying to get the thing ironed out the best we could on Wednesday. So we made a few more runs during the Thursday test session, and we went a best of a 5:55, and that was with Greg lifting a little bit early. So this is still no lockup. This is still what they are considering baby horsepower. It's big horsepower for most of us. We're talking 2200-ish horsepower range. So 555 at that power level with no lockup, I was pretty impressed with, pretty happy with. And then the last pass that we made on Thursday, we could have made some more runs, but we were trying to hit our 60-foot consistently in the low 140s, and we were trying to see if we could go 130 60 foots on that tire that day at that track. With the brand new build, there's going to be learning struggles, and the last run, it shook the tires pretty violently. There was a lot of front tire distortion. We weren't where we needed to be on air pressure yet. And usually a seasoned driver might have lifted on that, but when you're new to a combination and you're just making your initial laps in it, you don't know what too much feels like. You don't know what, hey, I should lift here feels like. You just know that, you're trying to make the run. And so it shook really hard, a lot of tire distortion, lots and lots of vibration. That translated into smoke in the tires while it was still shaking. And so basically at the end of that run, something's broke in the transmission, we assume. So we get it back. I'm told that reverse doesn't work. I'm told first doesn't work. So I'm thinking, okay, we broke a planetary. We broke something hard apart. We get the truck pushed in. We start ripping the transmission out of it. Luckily, I brought the spare. There's a couple things on the two transmissions that things that have to get swapped over. We're working on in the future making that a quicker transition. So it took a little bit of time to swap some of the external stuff over onto that transmission, some of the data sensor stuff, the way that they have it set up for the truck side. Got the new transmission all in, all said and done. Obviously, and not in time to do any more testing Thursday. It was pretty late in the day Thursday anyways when that happened. So I went ahead and started pulling the other transmission apart there at the track in case we needed it as a spare again, and because I really wanted to know what broke. And so the first thing I do usually is pull the pump out, and when I pull the pump out, Cole, one of the guys there that helps Greg, he noticed that when I pulled the pump out, a bolt fell out. And we looked at it, and the pump stator bolts that hold basically the stator goes into the pump gears behind the stator. We actually shook it enough times in testing, and it shook bad enough on that last run that it actually vibrated those bolts loose. And so one of them fell completely out. The rest of them were finger tight, and there was only one that still had any amount of tightness to it. And so what happened there is it lost pump pressure. So then I started asking a couple more questions. Turns out that, second gear was getting soft, and third gear was getting soft too on the way back. So went back, looked at it, and lost pump pressure. Went ahead and pulled the rest of the transmission apart, and I was pretty happy with what I was seeing in there so far. Keep in mind that we had only made 3 runs that it went through both shifts. So I would expect it to not be too bad, but at the same time, we were racing at a lot of weight and we're racing at a lot of power. The direct clutches, I noticed that they were starting to get just a little bit of heat in the steels. The clutches themselves look perfect, absolutely beautiful. The steels started to show a couple very small hot spots in them. They had plenty of life left in them. They could have made many more laps. The second gear band, which can often be referred to as the Achilles heel of the 48, I was noticing just a little bit of what I felt like was premature wear in that. Went back through some of our notes, and the second gear band had only been adjusted once. So we had made up to this point, we had put, I believe, around 9 runs on this transmission, 9 or 10 runs. So it was about due for an adjustment again. We were actually planning on adjusting it after that pass. That didn't happen. So a little bit of premature wear there, but overall I was pretty happy with the way that things were looking. There was very little material in the filter on the magnet. It was looking pretty good. So when we put the new transmission in, as I'm putting the fluid in, I noticed that this AMSOIL fluid that they run is a full synthetic. And it's pretty well known that you don't run a full synthetic fluid in a racing 48, 47, 727 style transmission. So I was really pondering on that the remainder of the weekend. And basically the reason that you don't want to run a full synthetic is if you ever put a full synthetic between your fingers and move it around, you could feel how slick it is. It's almost like engine oil, to where it's a lot of lubricity. The valve body really likes that, but the clutch packs don't. If you just take the regular Dexmark, like the extreme stuff that I sell, or any of the regular Dexmark that's on the market, you can put it in your finger, and it's like almost gritty feeling. Like it's almost where it doesn't have hardly any lubricity to it. Now, the reason that you want that, as opposed to it being really slick, is you have to think about what the clutches are doing, think about what the band is doing. Second gear band is trying to stop the direct drum that is turning twice the engine speed. So at 5,500 RPM, when you're trying to command the shift, that direct drum's turning around 11,000 RPM. In order for second gear to mechanically engage, that drum has to completely stop. So you don't want a slick fluid that is going to slow down the apply of the band and allow it to slip a little bit. It doesn't take much slip to tear stuff up. Same with the directs. When they're trying to apply, if you have a really slick fluid, it's gonna slow down the rate in which they apply and lock up and stop slipping. So it's just something that we hadn't talked about. It was a little bit of an oversight on the fluid. So now we have switched, we cleaned the cooler out, we went through the whole transmission after the event and everything, and we're back to the regular Dexmark that I normally use. But for the event on Friday and Saturday, we have to run with what we got. And what I'm seeing, I feel like we could get through the rest of the weekend with running the fluid that we have. We just know to change it in the future. So Friday, first round of qualifying, goes out there and puts a really good run up, in my opinion. Went 147 to 60 foot. We had to baby it a little bit. Conditions had changed a little bit Friday from testing, so we wanted to make sure that we went down the racetrack to put a number on the board. And it went 544 at 140 miles an hour, and that's with no lockup, and that's with not using overdrive yet. So really stout numbers for something that's that heavy. That's somewhere around the neighborhood of 24 to 2,500 horsepower when you factor in the converter slip. In first and second gear, the converter slip was still pretty good. It was only about 10% converter slip. But in third gear, basically when it drops the shift drop, when it pulls the engine RPM down, it was about 25% slip out the back. So that's about 25% of your horsepower not making it to the racetrack. So to go 544 to 140, impressed. Greg's personal best ever on the truck is a 538. So within 3 full runs down the racetrack, the 4th run was right there within his personal best ever with no lockup, no overdrive. Had we been able to accelerate the truck faster earlier by making it 60 foot like it had previously, like one of the 140 runs, that would have beat a personal best right there. whatever you gain in the 60 foot, you're guaranteed to carry it out the back. There is some multiplication that goes into it as to where if you pick up 7 numbers in the front, typically you're going to pick up at least 8 or 9 out the back. But even if you just what it carries from what you gain in the front, that run would have been a 534. So really, really stout, really happy. Me personally, those guys are obviously super happy that they're right back in their PB range within the first weekend out. So we tried a couple things in the second qualifier to try to speed the 60 foot back up to get us there, and it actually wasn't going to be fast anyways. It kind of rattled the tire a little bit, drove around, and he had to abort that run. So we didn't get any, no forward progress in Q2. If you can't 60 foot, you can't go fast out the back. We already knew what we could do out the back. Let's work on our 60 foot. Just the suspension is really showing signs of needing changed. It needs heavier springs. We were starting to work our way back to where we needed to be with the tire pressure. We're learning things. First time out, you're going to learn things about the truck. So we went into round 1 of eliminations, where he was paired up with Justin Ziegler, which, if you guys know, he is the Pro Street champion. That truck runs 490s like a bracket truck. So as of right now, those guys are outgunned. Really, there wasn't any way that we were winning that on paper. But Greg did a great job driving the truck. Went up there, staged it great, bumped it in perfect. He cut a decent light for being the first time that he ever had to take the tree in actual competition with a trans brake. He beat Ziegler on the tree. Everything was looking pretty good, but he wasn't going to beat a 494, I think is what he ran. He ended up going out there, lifting a little bit early, went a 555. Which ended the weekend for us. So far, really happy with the way that things are going. Got both transmissions going. I haven't gone through the second one yet, but we went through the first one. We just went ahead and replaced everything in them, because when you soak clutches in full synthetic fluid, so basically when you put full synthetic fluid in the transmission, it soaks into the clutches. The only way that you'll ever get that back out of it is to replace that clutch. So we completely reclutched, reband the first transmission. The second transmission is going to get the exact same treatment. So now that way, when we go to Rockingham next weekend, it is going to be with a fresh Dexmark setup. We've changed some stuff on the truck. We got some heavier springs coming for the rear to try to get our shocks back in their tuning window. And so we're going to go to Rockingham, hoping to improve on 60 foot and hoping to beat Greg's personal best. I would really love to see some 520 runs out of the truck this weekend, which sounds crazy, but they absolutely have the horsepower on tap to do it. Andre with SNS was on the keyboard all weekend for us, helping us out with the tune-up, and he really knows how to make horsepower, and he knows how to make it safely. So I'm very confident that there is a good possibility that if we can get the suspension to cooperate, that we could possibly go 520s this coming weekend with it. So that's the plan. That's my personal goal with it. I'd like to get Greg a new PB, and then, see at that point, keep seeing how these transmissions are living. So just wanted to take a minute to give you guys an update on it. I told you guys in the last video that every time we take this truck out, every time I have transmission updates for you, I'm going to keep you guys informed on this. What we're trying to do here is ridiculous. It's crazy. It's truly a realm that nobody has ever played in before. We're trying to get to using 3,000 horsepower, more importantly, over 3,000 foot-pounds of torque in a truck that weighs over 6,200 pounds. And we're trying to get the 48 to live as long of a life as it possibly can in those conditions. And we're going to figure out where the weak points are. The one thing I will say that I'm most impressed with is that we have no hard part failures at all yet to this point. So that gives me a lot of hope that there's a whole lot more left in the 48 platform. If we were already breaking hard parts where we're at now, I would feel like we were really going to have an uphill battle to get to the goal of actually being able to put down 3,000 horsepower. But right now, everything is looking pretty positive. So that's all I got, guys. Thanks for sticking around and watching. If you want to stay up to date on this whole journey, make sure that you click the subscribe button and make sure that bell icon's on, so that way every time I do drop a new video, you'll be notified. Make sure to hit the like button too. That really helps me get the videos out there to more people, so that way more people can follow along. That's all I got, guys. Thanks for watching. See you next time.